for those following along at home. Prior to coming in here today, our media partners were all temperature tested at the door. Everybody in the room is wearing a mask and maintaining social distance. I am now going to take my mask off so that those that read lips are better able to follow, and so I'm less muffled for the mic. All right. Again, thank you all for being here. So as we usually do, I'll run through a few announcements and updates from the administration, and then we'll take some questions. We'll start with the COVID update. As of yesterday, there have been 16,805 cases and 610 deaths reported. We're averaging over 160 new cases every day, and the positivity rate is now up to 3.6%. In addition, our hospital capacity is decreasing. Right now, we're at around 68% beds filled. It's important to be aware that should that positivity rate go above 5%, at that point, under the state guidelines, bars would have to close. So please be mindful of that. Those are the stats that we're looking at just at the front line. Dr. Avegno, the health department, will be out here later this week on Thursday morning. I don't believe that time has been set. It may be 10 o'clock, but we'll update you as we get that locked down. But Dr. Avegno will be here to give a full presentation on the current state of the data and to talk about where we move from here. Things to be aware of for this week. We do have testing opportunities available. There's a drive-through at the Mahalia Jackson, at UNO, and at the Hilario Center. That's today through Friday from 8 till 4 and Saturday from 8 till 2. We have drive-through at the Living School today through Friday from 1 till 5, and walk-up testing is available at Bountiful Harvest Full Gospel Church. That's today through Thursday from 8 till 1:30 p.m. There's walk-up testing at the Sanchez Center today from 12 to 6, walk-up at the French Market tomorrow from 12 till 6, and walk-up testing at the Hispanic Apostolate tomorrow through Friday 1 till 6 and Saturday from 9 till 1. So right now we have not been testing at the rates we had over the last summer, but we are keeping pace. The next few weeks are going to be extremely critical. We're watching the data and looking at the impacts from the Thanksgiving holiday and from recent events. As we have since March, we're going to continue to keep our eye on those key metrics, on the cases, on the fatalities, and certainly on that positivity rate. We're asking everyone to continue to follow the guidelines. It's been a long, hard year, and we get that. It is easy to get worn out by this, and we all are. But for everyone's safety, we need everyone to continue to follow those safety guidelines, and it's what you all know. Mask up, wash your hands, and maintain social distance. Avoid large crowds wherever possible. We are asking again, as I've said a couple times from the podium in the last few weeks, that as you move into holiday celebrations, be mindful that it is going to be different this year. And that's not an easy ask to make. That's not easy for anybody. But we can't celebrate this year in the way that we're accustomed to. So we encourage everyone to celebrate the holidays, Christmas, whatever holiday it is that you're celebrating this season. Do it with your own household and in a small group. We do have some light at the end of the tunnel. I know today in the United Kingdom they just rolled out vaccines for general populace, or not quite the general populace, but they're starting to move into that. But that's a huge landmark in the history of this pandemic. We are getting there. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we want to make sure that as many people as possible can be there to see that light, and to do that we need everybody to continue to be safe. The New Orleans Health Department is continuing to offer free flu vaccines. That's another critical point here, as we've mentioned before, to avoid getting to what has been called a twindemic, where we have a high flu outbreak in addition to the coronavirus pandemic. We're asking that everyone double down this year and get your flu shot. You can get those for free. The next event is going to be this Friday, December the 11th, at First Grace United Methodist Church in Mid-City from 1 till 6. That's going to be a walk-up event. And it serves a dual purpose. On the one hand, we're making sure that people have access to free flu vaccines, which is critical, but it's also an opportunity for our public health officials, administrators, to have a walkthrough, as we've done a couple of times before, so that when we do get the vaccine, we're positioned well to start that distribution and to work through the logistics of how that's going to work. A couple quick updates, and then we'll take some questions. As I mentioned before, but it's important to kind of reiterate this, as of January the 1st, Jefferson Davis Parkway will be renamed Norman C. Francis Parkway. That will take effect January 1st. As we said, Entergy, I think, is automatically updating everybody's address, but we would encourage residents and businesses on that parkway to do everything they can to make those adjustments, because that is coming in January. So that's all I have for announcements. We'll take some questions.
We're seeing some other states go to a lockdown type of style with restrictions. Is that something that could be on the verge with New Orleans?
I don't know that we would say lockdown at this point. And beyond that, I think you're talking about a statewide situation, which would certainly be up to the governor and to his staff at the state level. In New Orleans, however, as I said, we are looking at concerning numbers. What those restrictions will be is yet to be determined. Dr. Avegno will be able to give further details on Thursday, but Dr. Avegno at that time is really going to be speaking to the data and giving a deeper dive than what I just did in terms of where we are with all the data. What those restrictions are going to look like is yet to be determined. You should probably count on capacity reductions and gathering sizes. In the past, just as we've had to make these adjustments, that's kind of been the first place that we've been able to make substantive progress. So it's likely that those would be the areas.
That would go for businesses, capacity restrictions?
Presumably, but again, the details are still being worked out. I'd encourage you to check back with us later this week.
Is it a foregone conclusion, do you think, though, that we will see some?
I don't know that it's. I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion at this point. I would say that the data that we see is concerning, and I will leave it to Dr. Avegno to make that call, and to the mayor, of course. They will look at that data and make the determination. The determination has not been made at this point, to be clear. That said, the data does not look good, and we want to kind of prepare people for that.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about where the city and the administration is going from here after the defeat of the tax proposals this weekend?
Yeah, I can speak on that briefly. I will say for the administration, for the mayor, we were disappointed, certainly, but not discouraged. And now it's a matter, I think the mayor set the tone really well on Sunday when she spoke to this on camera. We're moving forward, and we've got to look ahead into the next year and to how we proceed from here. 2021 was going to be a challenging year in any case, and we knew that. Given the way that the vote went on Saturday, it's potentially going to be that much more challenging. What those details are, we don't know at this point. Obviously, as you heard many people say, the mayor and Gilbert as well, the considerations around those millages were part of their conversation for the budget for 2021. Now that that is not the case, we're going to have to rethink some things. The mayor and her budget team and the CAO are going to be determining what that looks like. There are no easy choices ahead. We have already had to cut over $100 million from the budget. That was a blow across the board, and we're trying to find the best way to absorb this going forward. So to be specific, I don't know the answer to your question as to what the next step looks like, but I know it's something that the mayor, the CAO, and all of her team are actively looking at. As we have more details on that, we'll let you know.
WWL. Anyone else? Fox City.
So are layoffs a foregone conclusion, as the mayor has alluded, or can this wait until after next year, since a lot of these millage funding sources will continue through?
Well, so there's a couple pieces to that. I'm not going to say anything's a foregone conclusion, right? And certainly when you're talking about something as serious as layoffs and force reduction, that's something that the mayor is not going to take lightly, and we're not going to make any kind of snap decisions on. So what that will mean, what that's going to look like, we still have yet to determine that, right? Given the way that the vote went, given what we're looking at in terms of the budget, it's certainly on the table, and I think the mayor has made that clear. But there's not some kind of automatic trigger point where this is immediately going to happen. So what's going to happen now is that the mayor, the CAO, and the budget team will look at where we are. And a lot of this also is going to depend on what happens with the economy and the recovery. As we get a vaccine in place, as we start to see the economy stand back up, that may change the conversation considerably. Certainly we want to be optimistic, we want to be hopeful, and we don't want to close off any doors. So the short answer to your question is that's not yet been determined. It's nothing is a foregone conclusion, but it's absolutely something that's on the table.
Yes.
And in terms of vaccine, you mentioned the event at the Methodist Church. It will be a dry run, basically, for when we get the vaccine. At this point, do you have any feel on when there might be mass distribution of a vaccine to the citizens?
I certainly don't. I mean, I'd say that's something that's kind of far above my head. It's going to be something that happens on the federal, the state, and the local level. Certainly, we're going to be in tight collaboration with our partners at every level of government, but that's going to be a team effort across the board. When that actually will happen in terms of mass distribution, I don't think we have a firm number on that yet, but I do think everyone is optimistic. The fact that we are starting to see that in other countries, the fact that many of these vaccines are moving ahead with the approvals process is absolutely a hopeful sign. So, you know, the sooner the better as far as everyone is concerned, and as soon as we know when we can pull that trigger, we'll certainly let you know.
When we say the data is not looking so good, what could that mean for students, public school students in the city?
Well, you know, I think that's still open to interpretation, right? Or not interpretation. I don't think that's been determined yet. I think the idea of students moving back to virtual learning is something that certainly is not outside the realm of possibility. I don't know that that's something that we're looking at right now. As we have said from the beginning and throughout this process, keeping students in school and prioritizing in-person learning for the students is critical for the administration, for the city, and ultimately for our economic and for our social recovery. So we do absolutely want to make sure that that's a last resort of taking kids back out of school. But determining what happens next is really going to be relying on the data, and we don't know what that looks like yet. Okay?
Anyone else?
All right. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you.